Thank you to Manufacturing Today for hosting this wonderful event. I'm sure all the sessions that has been happening, it's bringing a lot of insights, and especially this topic, it's very dear to me, and even from the role that we do. So let me just kind of talk briefly about that. So I head the NASSCOM Center of Excellence, Gandhinagar, which has been set up 2 years back with an objective of driving the digitization in the manufacturing sector. And for that, we are building an collaborative ecosystem to basically bring together manufacturing companies and solution providers under one common platform. And when I see Rashmi, so the panel which has been curated here, and it's really good to see that we have senior leaders from the manufacturing companies and also senior leaders from the solution providers all under kind of one umbrella. So it's definitely the ecosystem coming together here. So that's where I'm pretty very excited to kind of moderate this panel. Now, just kind of for me to set the context, on the topic that we are talking about, let me bring out some insights, and these insights are basically from the research that we did at NASSCOM, and then you all are encouraged to go to the NASSCOM site and then get the NASSCOM report on the Industry 4.0 that we brought out recently. So the spent in the Indian manufacturing industry on the digitization is getting to a $5 billion, which is a huge. And then out of the total tech spend that happens in the manufacturing sector, 50% is going on the Industry 4.0. So it's a huge spend which is already happening. There is companies who are showing interest. There are companies who are moving forward in their digitization, and then we all are thanking to the COVID on what it has kind of taught us on how digitization is so important. So I think very important stats. There is one more stats I have for you is the out of this, basically the 75% of the majority of the digitization spend or the Industry 4.0 spend is being done by the discrete manufacturing companies. So essentially the automotive, electronics, heavy engineering. So it's all about discrete manufacturing who are as of now doing the bulk of the investment on the Industry 4.0 technologies. And 25% is through the process industries of which the chemicals and pharma, they're kind of doing a lot. So again, a kind of good stats. But then there is one challenge also I would like to highlight here is a lot of this spend or a lot of the focus on the digitization or the successes of the digitization is that we are seeing is basically from a large corporates or the global companies. Right? The challenge which we still have is the disparity or the asymmetry in the overall manufacturing digitization. I think there are still a lot of companies who have done a bit or have started but still have not moved forward. So not much has been done, and I think that is why we felt hopefully this panel discussion where we will get to hear the thoughts from the leaders, and it will bring in a lot more insights for those manufacturing leaders to get some ideas about why this is important and how, and what really we can do about it. So let's start, and I think from industry point of view, we have leaders from the automotive industries, we have from the FMCG kit, and from the solution providers. So my first question will be more on a reality check. Like we are talking about digital factories or smart factories, and but the question right now basically is if we compare it with the digitization that is being happening in the other parts of the world, and then if you try to compare it with what we are doing in India. So from that point of view, what are your thoughts? And maybe I'll start with starting this question with maybe Rakesh or Christian. If you could answer this question. So are we really ready for the digital factories or the smart factories? And are we accelerating at a correct pace? Do we really need to make all our factories smarter? Where are we if we compare ourselves with the global, and considering you have been working with a lot of companies in India and a lot of companies in globally also. So I thought it will be good to kind of start there.
Yeah, Mohit, I'll take that call, and thanks a lot for being inviting me for this event, the team here. And I'm facing some camera problems, so probably you'll have to pardon me for that. But the question is very relevant, and a question which we talk about more often than not: the readiness of the Indian ecosystem, the readiness of the Indian environment versus the global environment. There are a lot of technology adoptions which happen globally, and what we have seen in the Indian context is that fact that with the COVID coming in, fence sitters, the fence sitters of adoption of technologies realize that there is this particular possibility of all those concepts which are being talked about, because the environment forced them to look at it. And that was the silver lining to the mass destruction COVID has. But in the industry adoption, the technology adoption, COVID has actually accelerated the adoption of this in the Indian context. That's point number one. Point number two is the fact that while this is true, and while we as are optimistic about it, the reality on ground is slightly different, where the classification of knowledge proliferation downstream with respect to what cloud technologies, edge computing technologies, and other IoT technologies which are there in the manufacturing segment in the process of digitization. There is this issue of knowledge understanding. There is an issue of confusion. There is an issue of which technology to be adopted, and so there is that apprehension about the choice of technology, though they know that they have to go in for it. And the clarity in terms of what we have seen is that there is a lack of clarity as to where to begin and what to save, whether it is productivity to look at, or cost saving to look at, or efficiency to look at. And then to put it off, we also include the worker safety solutions, worker safeties and productivity. So it's a very interesting position. So we as Tata Communication, we actually go through a model of actually giving an advisory to start with, and letting
Yeah.
people know
So
that
maybe
start
Rakesh,
small.
I think related to the advisory, I'll come in a little later. So as of now, I'm let's kind of and try to understand, is it like should this be a really a vision for it or not, to kind of and have a have a digital factories with us, say maybe it should it be a next 2 to 3 years vision, or do we think that yes, I mean we can aim for 2030 where we try to digitize all the factories in the country. So from that point of view, any comparison between where are we now and where we look forward to, or where say the other global plants are there? So any thoughts there? And maybe Christian, you might have some ideas there. I mean,
Yeah. Um, Frankly, I haven't been to India for a couple of years, especially because of COVID. So really a bit difficult to give in specific India flavor to it. But if I look around Asia in general, and if I compare that to what I'm seeing, like what's happening back in Germany, my home country, I do believe that Asia is still a few steps behind in terms of automation, in terms of digitization. It is, in my opinion, extremely important to catch up. I mean, Asia used to be like low labor cost advantage country, right? But I mean, these advantages are going away as labor cost is going up, and also in terms of the automation that, let's say, in Europe or US markets is being achieved in their factories. So yes, I do believe there's a bit of catch up to do still.
sure. Dhiren, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, yes, Amit. So first of all, whether, let us not get into why it is really required, because it is required. We will get more details about the value of this entire industry 4.0 and all of that. Depending on the readiness and where are we, whether it is 2025 or 2030, my experience as a technology provider, we go to multiple customers, OEMs, large customers, medium segment, smaller segment. If you look at the holistic view, actually, from an awareness perspective, initiative perspective, understanding perspective, intent perspective, it is all there. Everybody wants to do it. Some people are doing it. They have just started. Some people have advanced. Some people have yet to start. So from that whole holistic perspective, definitely it is there. From a readiness perspective, I can say that, 30, 40% people are ready, but majoritively, right from automation, sensorization, having controls, instrumentation, whether the products are or the machines are smart enough to collect the data. I think some work needs to be done there. But as I said, the intent, awareness, education, the value, it's all there. So if you really ask me whether Indian industry is ready, yes, it is ready. Some work needs to be done. Is it 2025, 2030, 2025? I can say very much, because we have to do this. No other choice. And 5 years is a good, timeline to really. And is technology there? Yes, connectivity is there. 5G and all is coming up. So I think the infrastructure is coming up. Awareness is there. Education is there. Intent is there. Yes, a little bit of groundwork needs to be done, but we are definitely there. I think we are 2025 is the right this thing, and the pace is, yes, as Christian also said, needs to improve. I think we are all at a stage where yes, something needs to be done, but I think it's a time to really do it, is what I can say.
Absolutely. So I think great. So I think which is what I wanted to set the kind of an background. I think we really need bit of an acceleration. 2025 definitely needs to be vision for us. And then as Christian also said, that I think we are still maybe a couple of steps behind. So we need to do some bit of a catching up. And then maybe let's talk on how can we do this catching up now. So and to do that, I think I'll first try to get the point of views of the plant heads we have. I think they really bring a lot of the experience and their experience on the challenges also that they're facing in the organization. So first I'll come to you, Vishal, from Tata Motors. So basically, the one question which I think comes to every manufacturing leader is basically the technology, whether it is an investment or a cost. I mean, a lot of times we keep talking about ROI, so I'll not even go into the ROI, but I'll say that technology is technology should be taken as an investment, not a cost. So what is your views on how technology can create value for the organization in terms of impacting both the top line and the bottom line? So maybe from your experience, how you have seen technology helping value for the organization, both at a revenue side and at the saving the cost side also.
Yeah, thanks, Amit, and thank you to have me on this panel. So you're rightly asked a very valid question, and that's what always comes to the mind when we look at technology. But if we look at the evolution that has happened in Indian manufacturing, it has actually gone through various stages. And, we started with very manual machine systems and to robotics. And then now we are all getting into the Industry 4.0 league. And what we have found is that the technology is needed, and it is one of the most important tools which will help us to build operational efficiencies. It will help us to, take us to the next level in terms of meeting the customer expectations and the changing scenario that is building from the customer side. And if we have to actually deliver to those requirements, then technology is one of the key pillars which every industry has to have. And therefore, if we see that it is one of the, I would say, investments which organizations will have to make to keep themselves at speed in the future expectations in terms of customer demand, customer quality requirements, customer needs on-time delivery, connectivity that they are looking at, and real-time solutions that the customers are looking at. So if we look from that perspective, for organizations to be future ready, to be ready to meet these challenges, I think there is no other solution than to really invest in technology. And if we look from the experience that we had, we are finding that it is one which shifts the needle quite ahead and brings in a lot of operational efficiency improvements. And it also, on the other side, gives us a lot of synergy and across the value chain. It brings in data transparency. It brings out the waste that is there across the processes, and also helps us with predictive and prescriptive tools, which help us to be consistent in meeting our customer expectations and demands.
Okay, great. That was great insight. So, Binod or Vaibhav, I mean, maybe can I ask the same question to you also? So, basically, would like to um, hear from you more about your experiences on how technology has helped in your organizations, or wherever you have seen in bringing in the improving the top line or the bottom line. So, basically, the business impact that the technology has brought, and kind of in real examples of that.
So I'll just take this, Vinod, just allow me for a bit. So I've just completed one project where we have, we have created a smart factory, and there have been multiple learnings that we have gone through in the process. Okay, so when we started off, it was there were so many options of the technology that what is to be done. Now when you are starting a greenfield project, you are looking to do it as a smart factory. It is like always it's a FOBO, fear of better option. You'll keep searching for the better option, not committing anywhere. And we ended up spending about 9 months to a year, where we actually went through the entire process, where we were learning the entire what needs to be done. At the end of the day, we had to sit down and and then decide, okay, which is the technology that we want to go ahead with, what are we trying to do here, and how are we trying to improve our processes. So while we talk about digitization, a lot of companies, and when we talk about if say 2025 or 2030, the companies start to have that FOMO. Yes, let's do something. Let's do digitization. Let's have this. Let's do it. Okay, you end up doing something. You end up digitizing a process which is not efficient in first place, where you have not worked on improving it because the technology has moved forward. You have not worked on improving that process and digitizing it. You've done the digitization at the first phase itself, which to my mind will not give you the kind of returns that you're looking at from a technology intervention. So if you are working on the process engineering and technology, both working together, it will give you fantastic results. Now, to give you an example, we have had our warehousing costs have come down dramatically once we have started the smart warehouse. The kind of warehouse that we are looking at, we are saving about 70% against the manual operations cost. While there has been a capex, but it has made business sense to invest and to get this thing done. So it's a result that we have got. But for that result, there was a lot of business engineering, business process engineering that we had to do before we got there. So it's a case of a chicken and egg story. If you start with the right process, you will get the right result. But the process, if it is not right, you will end up with a so-so result, which again then will help, which will hinder in future in investments into the technology inside in the organization.
That's really great insights. Vinod, any thoughts from you?
Yes. Technology is definitely, we have to be with technology, otherwise we will be outdated. But I have a different perspective for this, because in a company, in an organization, the leadership, when we decide to go for a digitization, then we cannot copy this from any other industry, and we cannot implement in our organization, because this is not like any other systems. You have to make a tailor-made system for your organization. Because our operations, our way of working, our products, our customer requirements are totally different from others, even though the products are common. But we have to be very specific. And for that, a tailor-made solution is required for any organization. And that too, we cannot implement in a phase-wise manner. We cannot implement in a one stretch. I'm getting into based on my experience. We have to go by phase-wise. We have to have some short-term, middle-term, and long-term plans, because what happens if you, as Vaibhav told, it's a greenfield projects. Now, any factory, any plant which is getting erected, installed now, recent past, those are coming with smart machines, but machines are very old. We need to have a proper plan how to make it smart, because the data is coming, and it has to capture, it has to work out, all those analytical part is also there. So one is capturing the information from shop floor, And secondly, the most important thing is you have to make a team which is ready to analyze the data, because the moment you go from this paper to digital, a lot of information will start coming. Though you cannot get confused what I will do with this data. So that kind of people management, that kind of good people who is aware of this digitization, who is aware of managing the data, who is aware of analyzing the data. So that is required. So there is worth investing in technology, worth investing in going with technology. And yes, we have to be always with along with technology. There is no doubt about it.
Vaibhav, so I think you highlighted. I mean, I'll come really again back to you. You highlighted about from the examples that you've done, the process re-engineering or is kind of an extremely important. And then while you are taking all decisions about the capital investment, but the process engineering becomes the most important element of it. Now, to make any process change, it's a huge task, right? So, and for industry 4.0 adoption, the process change becomes the must. So now when we are talking about manufacturing leaders to embrace industry 4.0, how do you really manage it, this such a level of a process change? I mean, because it is not just about thinking of what process to change, what kind of changes to be made in the process, and be it any process, whether supply chain or operational process. I mean, every change will be a difficult. So example you shared about the warehouse, I'm sure the processes that you would have changed in that warehouse would have been a kind of a big effort. So how do you make that happen? What challenges you face in making these changes in the process? How do you make sure that everyone accepts these changes, and then it really gets real? So
Yeah. So there are few things that we had to do. One is you have to question each and everything that you do in the process. Is this thing adding value? Is this part of the business? Is this part of my process adding value to the end outcome? Is this report really required? Are we really doing anything with this data? These are the questions that we started asking. I'll give you another example. So we had manual warehouses, and we have our products which are very, very small. And so pilferage was one of our big concerns in a manual kind of a warehouse. Somebody who's working in the factory or who's working in the warehouse might carry some bottle, some very small bottle, and then it will be out. And then I would get a complaint from the market that I received short units or some of the other issues. So to avoid this, what process at that time in earlier setups was put up was, before you load every carton, you have to weigh, and then whatever carton is underweight, you can take it out and you can examine. That process got put up, and that actually stopped certain kind of pilferages, because people then feared, okay, it might get caught. So things started working on that side. So that became a process. You have to weigh everything, and then as the speed increases, nobody is going to look at what data is being kept up, what is what are the accurate info, this thing, and that data doesn't get used anywhere. So we said, okay, why don't we do away with this? Because we are moving into an automated warehouse, why don't we do away with this? Then this became a issue that we had to tackle with our quality team. Then we had to get people in quality, people in finance, get them aligned that, okay, we are changing processes, we are reducing certain control processes, but that is because we have better controls in place. So wherever you have technological controls which are coming in, technology, wherever it is helping, you have to use it to remove some of your old processes. And then you have to prove it to people that, yes, this is how it is going to help me. This is how it is going to reduce my pain. This is how this process reduction will help me to get a better output from the line or from the entire process. So that's something that we had to do. Multiple stakeholders, it takes time. But once you once you decide to invest into technology, that investment into stakeholder management to getting the right processes in place is extremely important as well.
wonderful. I know, man, it would have been a very difficult task, but I think very important.
Maybe Amit, if you allow me, I can just take
Yeah.
a minute here to just share my experience on this, actually, because this is what commonly we also hear to know. Technology is there, everything is there, but the cultural change that is required to really take up these kind of initiatives and make it successful And one of the I don't know, many of you might have heard, Vaibhav, you and your team visited Bharat Forge, one of the leading automotive company. And what they did is they went through a training of 2,500 engineers for 6 weeks, divided into 1.5 to 2 months kind of a time frame of 1 to 1.5 weeks of every this thing, including the supervisors, engineers, even including the people at the VP levels, which they have to sit in a conference room. They have this entire Industry 4.0 kit on a conference table where the robotics, the conveyor lines, and all of that moves with sensorization. And people have to disassemble, assemble, collect the data, look at the dashboard. They can also build in. So basic idea here is very famously, they said that we need to remove the fear of technology from people's mind. Okay, the moment you remove that fear of technology from the people's mind, once they experience it, now if an operator understands that if I make this machine smart, I'm going to get a lot of information from this machine, which will help him to understand it better and make that utilization of the machine much more efficient, then he will actually get into it. But if you really don't take them into an account and train them well and remove that fear, then the cultural change becomes. So I think there are different ways of, this is one example of training and really getting hands-on and making them understand. And I saw a tremendous difference because of this. Now, they treated the machines totally different, because they know what they can get out of it. So just as an example, just wanted to share.
Great, thanks. This was great. So 6 weeks, I'm sure, that's a huge investment, and definitely they would have seen the benefits also. And I think the great point that you highlighted is, it is not just a senior leadership getting aware of or getting confident about digitization will help. I think as we really have to make the whole organization adopt the digital and understand the digital. I think the point you just said, that remove the fear of technology. I think which is very critical. Yeah, thanks for highlighting, Dhiren. So I think while we have talked about it, let's even talk about how do you build a roadmap for this manufacturing transformation. But we do face challenges. While we decide, where to go, what to do, where to start. And so I think the most essential element that comes up is the building a strong roadmap that really guides on how to go about it. Like Vinod also highlighted, we really need to have a phase-wise approach, correct? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and a kind of a long term. These roadmaps cannot be just okay, what do we do in say 2022, and then towards the end we see what we plan to do and then what we did. The roadmap has to be a multi-year plan to start with. What kind of helps us first. So I'm sure you all will have some kind of an advice and the best practices from us for us on the building a roadmap. So Rakesh, I'm sorry, I cut you off during the initial question, and only reason was because you were getting into the how do you build a roadmap, and that's where I thought maybe when the question comes on a roadmap, I'll kind of come to you. So here I am, and so I'll first ask you only. So what are your thoughts or maybe advice to the companies who are looking forward to build a roadmap?
Hey, thanks, Amit. And so the idea was I was going across the whole macro level presentation as to covering up the whole scope of things. And the panelists over the period of another 20 minutes, 30 minutes have actually brought out those points, which are very, very critical in terms of acknowledging, understanding, and Vaibhav has actually deployed a smart factory. So he's the best judge in terms of answering this question, because we are people who want to go and sell. We have people who want to collaborate and partner with them. And what we have seen and the way we have addressed the market, and ultimately it's the market which we have to address. And Dhiren has actually rightly talked about the training part and the education part and the fear of technology adoption, because that's very important. There are a lot of confusions which people have. There are a lot of confusions on job losses where people resist. Automation is actually being talked about as a tool to losing jobs. And in my previous avatar as a co-founder of a company, I've actually worked on the ground level with the government machineries. And that's where I realized that whatever we talk about in the top level, it resides at the top level. The people who are actually the users of the technologies, if they do not know that this is going to solve their day-to-day problem, if they do not know if this is going to be solving their day-to-day problem, it will never be adopted by the plant managers. It will never be, even though the CEOs and the CXOs will be able to, adopt that question by the investment. The point would remain that It is to be, the users have to accept it. And if the users don't accept it, you cannot do anything. They will find multiple other various reasons of resisting it. And that's where the challenge is. So from a question of roadmap, what we do is we also realize the first challenge which a business development team faces is that it's always a question of cost in our country. The price is very high, the cost is very high. So what we thought is we had to innovate a business model. We said, okay, we have a model in place where we will give you a coverage of infra in terms of LoRaWAN technology, and then you may use this coverage for multiple use cases. Now we have the whole stack which we cover, which we have the whole network platform. We also can design devices for the enterprises and customers. So we have that whole control in the stack and the application, or we have that whole control. So when we go to these customers, we actually can customize solutions for them. Now, when we ask pertinent questions as to what is the business outcome you want to go for, it's not a technology choice. What do you want to achieve? What's your overall vision statement for which the business problem which you want to solve? Is it some places we have gone and solved the safety and worker safety and productivity problem. It wasn't the whole host of stuff. We can go and talk about 5G, LTE, 4G, confuse the hell out of everybody, and it'll never take off. But if you say, okay, boss, you start small, and then with this whole network coverage, you can integrate, build a solution which can integrate. There'll be interoperability, and then you will have a larger picture coming out. So we've gone around saying that in a factory environment, we have a sweet spot of man, machine, and material, where there is a synergy of data flow and there is a synergy between the three. Can we aggregate the data of these in real-time basis and give you a very intelligent platform to actually proactively take decisions? So it gives you productivity, efficiency, and the works. It can get integrated. So we have said we've realized that it is a lot of hand-holding to be given to the people, to give a lot of confidence. People are scared whether they're doing it right, wrong. So in that point, it's all about presentations. It's all about collaborations, partnership, investment, and going small. If you talk big and wait for the big thing to happen, I don't think so. Things take out that well, and it takes a lot of time. So that's our personal experience in the Tata Group. So we've been calling it an IoT fabric model, where we actually go and say, boss, if you guys give us the access to the plant, we will put the network of IoT. We'll bring our solution providers. We have our ecosystem built. We will work with you guys to solve your basic problems, which can be broken now. Okay. And then it switches up to the larger problem. So that's the way we have been seeing success. And we've seen a lot of good success happening now.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Christian, I have the same question for you also. What would be your advice to the manufacturing leaders who are looking forward to build a transformation roadmap for their plants or for their organizations?
Well, I mean, for myself, I'm coming from the IT side, right? If you want to build smart factory, Industry 4.0 initiatives, I mean, there are many pieces of the puzzle that come in terms of technology assets and so on. But from an IT side, I mean, I've spent years building multi-year roadmaps for manufacturing companies, and I think, well, number one is really important to have that kind of long-term roadmap to work on. Instead of just doing projects by projects that they might not be connected. But I think what really worked well from my experience was to really do like a detailed, like a value analysis of that roadmap. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people want to do a lot of different things, but when you actually really deep dive every step of that roadmap and try to determine what is the value, what is the potential benefit, the potential return on investment, and then prioritize the roadmap by the value and then also by the speed of getting it implemented. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Thanks. Dhirendra, any thoughts from you? Quick thoughts?
Yeah. So definitely, I think the roadmap is extremely important because a lot of things to do, where to start. So from PTC perspective, since we are a technology provider and based on our last 30, 35 years of experience in the engineering and manufacturing domain, we always go with some kind of approach saying that, I normally talk about 3 phases. I normally put that into like a Wi-Fi symbol where it says the first one is the understand phase, the second is the advance, and third is the outperform. And I divide this into 4 major pillars. If you really see Industry 4.0 adoption, it is basically what? The visibility, the first one, the transparency is the second one, the predictability is the third one, and adaptability or autonomous is the fourth one. So I put these pillars into those 3 phases. For example, first phase is all understanding. It's visibility and transparency. Connect the machine, get the data, understand. That should be your first phase. No confusion, nothing. Where to start? Just start small, as Rakesh rightly said. And small means basically 2 pillars. Then once you get that, then go to the predictive analytics, predictability. That is your advanced phase. Of course, you bring in more AI, ML, more modules into it in there. And the last phase, which is outperform, where we really outperform your competition, is going into a prescriptive mode, bringing in some prescriptive analytics and things like that. So all the technologies layer are divided into 3 phases so that, it's easy to understand, easy to adopt, get a quick ROI, and then slowly, move upwards. So there are more details to it, but it's a very short and sweet.
Absolutely bang on. And Vinod, so I think, so what Thiren just highlighted definitely, is on the similar lines that you were kind of
I have already talked on this subject, but I want to explain in a user point of view. Okay, Rakesh and Dhirendra has explained in a nice way from service provider point of view. But from user point of view, I think there are 5 things we have to focus on when we are deciding a roadmap for this. First of all, I already mentioned, it should be a suitable one for our organization. It should be a completely tailor-made for our organization. Secondly, there are a lot of options available in the market, because when we start discussing with the service provider for this, a lot of technologies, there are a lot of options, various costs, everything is available. But you have to be very selective what is required for your organization. That is the most important thing. And the third thing, this also I mentioned, you should have a very strong team to use the data which is coming from the digitized platform effectively. Otherwise, what will happen? You are not prepared for analyzing the data. After all, you will end up in blaming the digitization, blaming the service partner, blaming the people who are involved in the company for digitizing the things. So you should, before going all these things, you should have a team behind you. Yes, the data will come. I will analyze. I will do this. This is the way I am going to use this. So this is the most important thing. And the this is a cultural change. It has to go to the last operator of the company, because somebody mentioned the fear of technology. Yes, this is a big problem for when the operational people, the front-end people, the last operator should be comfortable by using this technology. And Vaibhav also mentioned, the 5th point is about that. You have to select what all parameters I have to monitor. All data are not required for the business. So what is required, that only you decide and that only you monitor. That will give a fantastic results, because it will be a lean. All the unwanted things we will not do. We will do what is required, the focused approach. That is my view on this. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Amit, if I may just put in one pointer here, and it's very important. I want to mention that, because most of the time we get carried away with technology and IoT's concepts and ideas. Most people talk about sensor data is coming in, generating data. What do you do with that? What's the value? And most of the time when we do demonstration we then go blindly into POCs. We do POCs to prove the technology works. And then we forget the larger objective of the point of proof of value. We have to deliver proof of value rather than proof of concepts. If we do that, there's a huge shift. The adoption will happen.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. So I think this really would have bring in a lot of great ways to build a roadmap. And now maybe I think I'll have one more question on how do you actually, decide basically what are the use cases that should be on the radar. So maybe I'll get a plant leader's point of view, Vishal. So I'll from a Tata Motors point of view, what are the use cases that you are seeing that are kind of most important or valuable, basically, where it really makes sense to invest in the technology. So what are those specific use cases which you recommend that I think say every manufacturing company they should definitely look on that?
So thanks, Amit. So basically, coming from the roadmap, actually, we should be able to get to know in the organization that what are your pain points, where you are actually missing the benchmark levels of performance. And once you know those pain points, so say for example, it can be quality where you want to get to the next level of Six Sigma levels or high levels of performance. In that context, then you have to get into the areas where maybe using the TQM approach or any other quality tools to come to those areas where digitization would be really give you a breakthrough improvement. Maybe where you may like to use vision systems or Pokayokis or digital controls and digital process controls, track and trace, or which you feel would be very helpful, say if you have to focus on one of your pain points, say if it is quality. So similarly, for organizations, if they are able to, as Vinod was also mentioning, we should be able to first dissect and do a initial assessment and come out with those pain points. It can be cost, it can be productivity. In some areas, it can be meeting customer demands or supply chain, connectivity, which is creating, which needs to be improved. So once we know these pain points, then the digitization scope becomes very, very clear. And there we can then focus our energy and resources. And then the roadmap, which we have been discussing, can become much more focused, much more clearer. And the objective of the overall initiative becomes very clear. And then you can also measure it in terms of financial performance or in terms of return of investments, as well as you can attach the digital training to the workforce so that you can build that competency and capability so that they can use it most appropriately. So what I therefore suggest is that organizations need to assess where they are on the criteria that they want to meet for their performance, pick up the pain points, and from those pain points, do a very deep dive and identify areas where you need to really do the POCs and then scale up as you move along the journey.
Okay, Weber, from the FMCG point of view, would you like to highlight certain use cases where you feel that these are the use cases which definitely should be looked upon? Maybe 3 or 4 top use cases for the FMCG industry.
Yeah, so FMCG industry as a whole is now changing towards mass customization, a lot of volume and a lot of a lot of range, so to speak. So automations in warehousing, automations in the way material handling is done is one critical area for FMCG companies to look at, because that entire thing, while we are and learning from auto, and that's one area which we have started doing in these times about material handling specifically, as to how the material can reach to the exact area when it is required, and how do we maintain a certain minimum stock at the line so that it doesn't stop. So those are areas where we are where we have seen benefits. Second area, as Vishal said, was about vision systems, about quality. See, today for FMCG companies, the earlier metric of complaints, consumers calling up the helpline and complaining to the company are no longer there. Today, if a consumer is not satisfied, that consumer is going to post on Facebook or on Amazon or on Flipkart. So we have to look at that, get the voice from there, and improve our quality systems to a level where we are able to manage. And there are multiple technology tools which are available to improve our qualities as per the consumer perception. So while FMCG is meeting, is all about meeting the consumer needs, said or unsaid. Today, the consumers are getting so aware that their needs, while the company is not willing to meet it, they are willing to demand it. And that's the challenge that we have today. And that is something that we are working on. And we are seeing certain benefits. The green shoots are there in POCs. but it will require a long effort in terms of meeting the full-fledged implementations.
Great, thank you. And I'm just looking at the clock also. I think we are kind of really running off the time. We need to have a few minutes. We need to leave for the questions also. So before we wind up, I'm sure I think this session has really brought in some great insights. I mean, I personally have learned so much from the conversation. Just as a last thing, maybe I'll ask all of you, maybe just in a one line, if you want to give any advice to the manufacturing leader who is still thinking about it on what to do, how to do. I mean, what would be your advice? And yeah, please keep it just in the line so that we can take few questions also. So Vaibhav, like I'm just seeing on my screen. So Vaibhav, you are first. So let me come to you only.
So I'll go first. I'll just say only one line. Go for it. It will pay off if you do it right.
Wonderful. Thank you. Christian?
Yeah, I wanted to say something similar. You need to go for it. It's a long journey. Take it step by step, and the success will come.
Great. Dhiren?
Yeah, I want to say that time is now, actually. If you don't do it now, you'll be late. So just do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Everyone on the similar lines. Vinod?
Yeah, it's the right time. We should go for that. Yes, in a stepwise manner, but you should go for that. No doubt about it.
Okay. Vishal?
Yeah, I think this is the right time for organizations to actually take this big leap on Industry 4.0, and and if we actually delay, it would be quite delayed. This is the right time to go for it.
Okay. Rakesh? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I resonate the advices of everybody here. I would also say that believe in yourself, take that leap of faith, and move ahead. It's important. This is the time for us to take this forward. The technologies have all converged. It's the right maturity. The industries have all come together. The technologies have come together, and then we are in the right place and the right time to move forward. The next generation will. We are stitching a story of the next generation who will be benefiting what we have to do.
Great, wonderful. So I think all of you kind of, and including me, I say the same thing. I mean, we can't even afford to even think on what to do and whether we should do or not. I mean, I think as we have already highlighted, I think we are already 2 steps away. I mean, delay. So there is no more thinking. I think has to be done. If we don't do it, then later on we will realize, I mean, how kind of how back we are. I mean, it's just like, I quote this example many places, a smartphone. I mean, initially, like a lot of people were little hesitant about smartphone, and still there is some people who have not used to it. And then we have seen that, I mean, if you are not using it at some point of time, you will be there that if you don't know how to use a smartphone, I mean, you will be missing out many things. So which some of the things you will not be even able to do it. So, and catching up late basically will make the things even more and more difficult. So start now, start taking baby steps. There are a lot of insights which has been come from the leaders on how to really start, how to build a roadmap. So roadmap is extremely important. I'll highlight a couple of more things here. One is basically the do and some level of an assessment also, because these assessments basically help you get to know where you are, where you stand, and then you can decide what could be the baseline for building the technology roadmap. And another point from me is, I mean, I'm actually passionate about design thinking. So that really, I mean, design thinking can really open up a lot of ideas and give a lot of food for thought on what are the things to be done in creating a roadmap. So I think that's from my side, but it was very insightful discussion. Thank you all. So maybe we'll open it up for questions. So Rashmi, if you can help us with a question. I know we just have maybe 5-7 minutes, so happy to take few questions.
Sure. Just we'll just give me a moment to go through if we have any that are there. Just
Amit, while we wait for the questions, one last thought which has come in is the fact that the country itself has got a very huge thrust on manufacturing. And is one of the pillars to be built upon, and that's a huge thrust by the government given to us, and such technologies will only enable, and we need to build that. So this is the time, and it's actually the government, macro environmental factors, everything is coming together.
Yeah, and which is why, I mean, I think the ecosystem becomes so important. Like when I started with it, I mean, so from an ASCOM, our whole effort from the center that we have at Gandhinagar is basically to build this ecosystem where we want manufacturing leaders and the solution providers and the research organization to come on a common platform and talk to each other, understand problems, share challenges, share best practices on how those things can be done. So leverage this platform. I would encourage to every manufacturing company to basically leverage the platform that has been set up by the government. It's a initiative from the mighty and the state government. So I think government is doing all its bit to help the manufacturing ecosystem.